Yeah, sorry to interrupt there. Will those officers have the commensurate powers as police officers? What will they be able to do?
They will be sworn officers. They won't carry a firearm, but they will have handcuffs. They'll have kevlar vests. They'll have body cams. They'll be very much trained in how to manage a hostile situation, and they will have the power to make arrests. So they're not trying to replace police officers, but they will be in uniform and they'll be a very visible safety presence. And look, I think they will make a difference. Just having those extra uniforms on the street, keeping people safe, I think is very important. They'll also be trained in how to manage those situations you see on the streets of big cities as well. You know, sometimes the right response from an officer is, hey, what are you up to? Sometimes the right response is, do you need a helping hand? And so they will work with the community. They're not going to try and replace police officers, but they are going to be a new presence on our streets. As I said, we haven't seen this in any other capital cities around Australia, but we're doing it for the first time here in Melbourne because, under this council, we're going to do everything we possibly can to make sure Melbourne is as safe as it can possibly be.
I'll come back to that first off. We'll just look at the statistics to say that it proves that they do. The numbers don't lie. They say that Victoria's crime rate has soared to the highest levels on record, driven by a spike in thefts, and that Melbourne remains the local government area with the highest rate of crime. And the federal opposition leader, Susan Lee, is in Melbourne today. Here's what she's had to say.
I am really concerned with the fact that we have the crime statistics that we do in this city and in this state. And when you consider that there's 1,000 young offenders that are cycling through the bail system being released continually onto the streets to commit more crimes, you realise that this Labor government has not got the situation under control.
So federal government, state government and local government all involved. The fact that you're having to put sworn officers onto the streets from the council, doesn't that show that the state government is not doing enough on law enforcement, that the police perhaps don't have the resources they need?
Look, the approach I'm taking to this, Chris, is to say if we can do something to help, then we will. Obviously, in local government, we don't have all the levers, but we believe we can be part of the solution, and we want to work with the state, with the federal government as well, to make Melbourne safe. I mean, we were very encouraged to hear the new Chief Commissioner, Mike Bush, this week talking about getting police out onto the front lines, out onto the streets again. There is a view that too much of police time has been taken up with paperwork and working on task forces for this and that. So to hear the new Commissioner's focus on really making sure resource is going to get to where it's needed most, I think that's very encouraging. I had a meeting with the Chief Commissioner last week. We've agreed that the City of Melbourne and Victoria Police are going to enter into an MOU with each other. Again, this has never been done before, but we're going to make sure that here at the capital city of Victoria, Melbourne, that we are working hand in glove with the police. We understand what our respective roles are and when each of us can make the most positive impact. So that's a really positive step as well.
Yeah, well, of course, the Police Commissioner, Mike Bush, said not so long ago that it's taken the protests in Melbourne, the weekly pro-Palestinian, anti-Israeli protests have taken up 25,000 police shifts, 25,000 shifts dedicated to protests rather than the prevention of crime. He said that these officers would have been preventing crimes if they weren't guarding these protests. Are you too concerned about these protests, not just the fact that they've been weekly in the past, but the fact that they're intending to continue on with them?
Yeah, it's an extraordinary number. It's at 25,000 shifts. And, it's self-evident that when that level of resource is being dedicated to protest activity, it's not being put to good work in other areas of police activity, such as community safety. So I'm very hopeful that now that we've got peace in the Middle East, we're going to see peace on the streets of Melbourne. I think, most Melburnians, after 2 years of protests, are saying enough is enough. We need to have our city back. Our shopkeepers need to be able to do a full week of business without disruption. Our famous theatres, our beautiful art galleries. Weekends are some of the busiest times in Melbourne because we've got so much activity here in the city. and we need to see an end to the protests and the disruption. We've got peace in the Middle East. Let's have peace on the streets of Melbourne again.
Well, the Victorian Labor government seemingly having a bit of trouble with policing. Good to hear that the Melbourne City Council is stepping up to fill that void. Thanks for joining us, Nicholas Reece.